Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam Mion. Today I'm joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And I think maybe for the first time this year, we're having a quote-unquote normal episode, right? Because I feel like ever since the year started, it's just been craziness, like acquisitions and like monumental games coming out. So our episodes have all been focusing on those. But today I just kind of wanted to bring up a topic that I think is an interesting one. What I'd like to affectionately refer to as the brown era of gaming. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about like the mid to late 2000s era, maybe early 2010s, where it seemed like most AAA games were obsessed with this like beige/brown color palette, and everything was a sort of Call of Duty clone. And this largely was prevalent in the PS3 360 like HD twin console era.
Yeah.
And I obviously everyone has their own personal tastes, but I think for me, in my, I guess, gaming life, this was probably I don't want to say low point, because I did enjoy a lot of games then, but like...
I would call it a low point, like, because as a collector, I think that this is the least interesting time to get games from. Like,
graphically, it was a low point. It was the early where we were figuring out. We were trying to
gameplay wise, it was not amazing either for mini games.
Yeah, there were a lot of games that were very much.
There were great games
same.
that came out at this time. That didn't really stop, but I would say that the average game was much worse.
It was dominated by waist-high cover shooters and Call of Duty clones. Really,
the Call of Duty clones. Yeah, I think there's a few things to talk about here, but I first want to just like zero in on the art and the graphics. I wonder why, right? Because like obviously it was a jump. The first time we were jumping to high definition. You know, these consoles were advertised as 1080p consoles, but in reality, they were 720p consoles.
Yeah. On a good day, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, seemingly with that jump in fidelity came a muted color palette, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
is there a reason?
I think largely it was to desaturate, because they wanted everything to look realistic.
Yeah, I would say
I think that's a good point.
Was because of the war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Which was very topical at the time.
That's an interesting point, yeah, and that really points to like games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which obviously is like a legendary, influential game, but like it was chock full of those like grays and browns and beiges.
They turned down that saturation slider.
And I think I really like Mike's point. Like, I think it was a weird attempt at realism. Like, now we can finally make realistic graphics, so just make everything look drab. It's just weird though. Like it didn't have to be that way. And obviously there were, colorful games in this era too, but I do think largely like the graphical style of the era was characterized by those few ugly colors. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, sometimes they threw a blue filter over it to make it nighttime.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is weird for me because you guys are talking about Call of Duty a lot, but one of the games that defines this era for me is GTA 4, which I think is the worst GTA
certainly
by a lot.
Yeah, GTA 4, which, by the way, it's funny to me how games, like, age and how they're perceived over time.
Because people loved GTA 4 when it was new. But looking back, like, it doesn't have... It's worse than GTA 5 in essentially every way I can imagine. But then,
and GTA 3 was legendary because it basically created the open world.
Yeah, and if I was going to revisit an older GTA, it's going to be like GTA 3, San Andreas, or the third one that I don't remember. Because I don't
Vice City.
Yeah. Those were all like cartoony and fun, and I played a little GTA 4, and realistic is a weird word to use for GTA 4 because I don't think it was really that, but tonally...
It was gritty.
Yeah, in a way that just wasn't that good.
Like
I think realistic. I do think realistic is what they were going for, though. Like
it did a good job GTA's of capturing like New York City, though. Like the grittiness of a rainy day in New York City was captured perfectly.
Yeah, they had a very gritty story they wanted to tell. Like I wouldn't say that they captured a reality, but it was kind of a caricature of. That's what
GTA is. That's what it's GTA. Like. It's a commentary, satire on American culture,
right? But they told like it was just so much darker than like GTA 5 or 3,
and less colorful too.
Yeah,
like GTA 5. When I look at it, like even though
it's
been
in
around
a desert and it somehow isn't brown, like it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's sun-baked.
It's a very beautiful game.
And funnily enough,
I don't love desert environments in games. That's just a level that I'm not that interested in. I don't like them in Super Mario either. But like I don't mind the desert in GTA 5 that much. Like, they did a really good job of making it visually distinct and interesting all the way through.
Oh yeah, it's very, very living.
Now I'm thinking about Borderlands. That game's hideous.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's before they got that
ugly.
the really nice style, and they just put the Borderlands thick outlines and cell shading over brown.
I liked like the style of Borderlands 1, like the cell shading and all was fine and all, but then the whole world, it looked like I hate to say it looked like Fallout New Vegas, which is also a hideous game. Like
New Vegas is hideous, but it's intentionally hideous. Like both the Fallout games,
it came out in that era, and so I've never been able to play it. I feel like I would like New Vegas if I could get past all that, but I can't.
See, Fallout 3 and New Vegas benefited from the realist brown trend because that's their purpose. It's meant to feel dreary and abandoned,
right? Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember Fallout looking like that. Like if Fallout I picture Fallout in my head, it has that drab look to it.
3 had a nice green tinge to everything, though. A nice.
You
green
talking about
filter.
the tint has me thinking about Battlefield 3, which was like at the tail end of all this, kind of.
It had like a blue tint, didn't it?
It had, because it had some vibrant colors to it, but then it put this horrible blue filter. Everything. I think there were mods to remove the blue tint, and it made the game.
I did like 3 a lot, though. I think 3.
Yeah, 3 is my favorite Battlefield.
One of my favorite Battlefields. I think 4 took the crown recently, but 3 is up there.
4 is. I just don't have the same memories with it.
I do think it's interesting you mentioning like the tail end of this, because like GTA is a great example in that like GTA 4 came out in the midst of this era, and then GTA 5 came out on the same console generation, no less.
Right.
And was like totally different art direction wise.
Yeah. And so good. Yeah, very good, really.
Yeah, and to be fair to GTA 5, right? Like it is 2 generations old now, and it's still getting remastered constantly
it also still prints money
for future hardware, and it still looks good. Like that art style is held up, that graphical style is held up. So
yeah, they keep just putting more layers of improvements on it. You can tell that it's a good engine when they can just keep putting graphical improvements and it doesn't cause the game to crash.
Yeah, you can play it at 60 frames per second on PS5 and Series X now, so that's
I think it
huge.
runs pretty well on the Steam Deck as well. I don't know if it hits 60 or not, but
the fact that the game has outlived 3 console generations is impressive.
Well, Skyrim kind of was during the Brown era too. Skyrim had a bit of.
I don't know. I would say Skyrim.
Yeah, Skyrim was gray, but it had color palette issues. But in retrospect, Skyrim is.
I guess Oblivion kind of came out.
Oblivion definitely did.
Like the start of the era, but Oblivion was very colorful.
Oblivion was brown. I didn't.
No, Oblivion was colorful.
Yeah,
very.
I was gonna say I don't think Skyrim really fits that either. I think Skyrim was more colorful than its contemporaries.
Skyrim was still bleak. It was very dreary.
Yeah, it was bleak for no. I remember installing mods very shortly after Skyrim came out to up the saturation because like it was. It just didn't have a wide range.
Dark Souls came out that same year, and that was intentionally very bleak.
Yeah,
Dark Souls, you know, obviously, like I'm extremely biased, but that muted color palette was perfect for that game.
Yeah, because they knew when to break away from it. There were a lot of games that like I feel like Uncharted had it in some areas, but certainly not the full game. Uncharted 1 was actually the worst offender, probably. Uncharted
1 was very green, right? It took place in that jungle. I actually think all of the Uncharted games are quite colorful. And I actually think, funnily enough, Uncharted 4 has the most muted color palette out of all the Uncharted games.
Yeah, but it came out late enough that was a statement, you know? It wasn't.
Yeah, it was an intentional, like, artistic choice. I probably, because the story was more mature and stuff like that, so. But no, Uncharted has been very colorful always, from what I remember.
I remember, so like the scenery was colorful, but the jungle was very. It was green. Uncharted 1 is not vibrant the way that Uncharted 2 and 3.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah,
like it was a much more muted.
But it was still, I think,
it was a lot better than its contemporaries. But it was
still. I think Uncharted 1 definitely started. It helped mark the reversal of the muted colored games. Like that was one of the first games in that era I remember. I was just like, wow, like this does not look like everything else.
Yeah.
And like it's so interesting because like obviously we can talk about Nintendo here in a minute because they had their own issues during this era. But like PS3, 360, HD consoles, like especially the first few years of these consoles, like I just feel like
they wasted it.
Yeah, there was like in terms of the games, like there wasn't really anything I was too interested in, right? Like obviously like the big, third parties really started shining in this era and I was a big fan of them, but like they didn't look that visually distinct. Like I'm talking about games like Assassin's Creed, like Far Cry, stuff like that. But
God, Far Cry 2 is pretty brown too. Yeah.
I do think that obviously like I've loved gaming my whole life. Yeah, even though I describe this as a quote unquote low point, but like the thing that saved this generation for me was multiplayer, right? Like I think this, at least in terms of the console space, was the advent of multiplayer, really, like in a serious way.
Xbox Live
online multiplayer, Xbox Live with your friends after school, like that sort of thing.
See, I did not get to participate in that at all.
I didn't either.
You really missed out, Connor.
I didn't get a PlayStation until pretty late in the game, and very few of my friends had a PlayStation.
Well, I participated towards like the middle of it, but only on the PlayStation level, and all my friends had Xbox. So
yeah, exactly. Like I had
a
few friends that I didn't actually know that I had made playing PlayStation, but not very many.
It's funny to hear from like obviously I'm PlayStation fanboy number one over here, but like I had a 360 and not a PS3 for the longest time. Like it was like, and the 360 was, even after I got my PS3, like 360 was where I played.
See, like, I don't think it's fair, which is why I hadn't really said it before, but I relate the brown era with the Xbox 360 far more than the PS3.
I kind of do too. I kind of do too, but I don't think that's fair.
There was a lot of multi-plat games that I just think
exactly,
as 360 games. Yeah.
It's because everyone played them on 360, because everyone in their mother had a 360 back then.
I mean, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've played these games more than me, but even some PS3 exclusives like Resistance, they were kind of brownish too,
Resistance
right?
was very brown. Well, Resistance 1 was very brown. I think Resistance 2 was a little more colorful.
I believe Killzone was pretty brown.
Killzone was muted for a purpose. Everything stood out.
I know nothing about Killzone.
Like the Hellgas, the Hellgas helmet stood out in the muted color palette because they were bright red.
And like I'm thinking about PS3 exclusives like Infamous. Infamous looked really good and was a good superhero game, but like it really did have that like filter over it too. Like this was a characteristic in like a lot of games back in the day.
Yeah, all I had was a Wii for most of this gen. I eventually jumped ship to the PS3 for reasons we'll talk about in a minute, I think. And like the reason it took me so long was just because I did think that there was nothing worth playing in this space, because all the games looked the same to me. And I like just was not interested at all. I mean, even it even got Sonic a little bit. Sonic Unleashed. The daytime stages are pretty vibrant.
Sonic 06?
Yeah, Sonic 06 too. I don't know. That. Sonic 06 graphically is not that bad. It's just a bad game.
I mean, it's pretty bad graphically too.
Yeah, but it's not I don't think it's an art style problem.
I don't know. I probably told this story on this podcast before, but I'm going to tell it again. I still remember the day I got Sonic 06 because I was still deep into the Sonic trance.
Yeah, you thought it was great, right?
I thought it was great for the longest time.
Yeah.
But like more than anything, I remember getting it with my friend and we started playing it on my PS3 and we watched that first cutscene and our minds were just blown, right? Like, cause like the graphics were unbelievable.
It looked like Final Fantasy,
it was like CGI and then like it was like, oh my God, the whole game's going to look like this. And then the next cutscene like was in engine and it was just like several orders of magnitude worse and it looked like a PS2 game. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they really jumped the gun because a lot of
they spent like the entire budget of that game on that first cutscene. Like I swear, they really must have.
Yeah, I think a lot of games from this era have aged worse than others too because they tried to go for an art style more realistic than the consoles could handle. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
They went for photorealistic and they really just weren't there yet. And so like these don't, Uncharted looks amazing to this day. Like that's not what I'm talking about, but like. Call of Duty Modern Warfare never looked good. Like Modern Warfare 2.
I don't know, man. Like I would say like out of all the gray browns, I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare looked the best.
Really? Like I mean that's fair. It could look
and maybe that's just
I don't know. Killzone 2 looked really good. Like
Killzone always looked very good.
Played like a movie at times.
Killzone always looked very good. But with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare especially, I think I just have an affinity towards that game because Call of Duty and Halo 3 were king at that point, right? Like if you were playing a multiplayer game, you're playing one of those two games.
Yeah.
And those two games shaped the FPS multiplayer scene to this day, you know, like especially Call of Duty 4, right? Like that is the sort of template that most modern multiplayer shooters built off of.
Yeah.
So I think just the fact that I had played that game so much and with friends, and it was such a big part of my life, I see it more favorably. But I remember the art style. Like I acknowledged it was gray and gritty and stuff, but I was like kind of okay with it.
Yeah, I think Halo 3 was kind of the opposite though. Halo 3 was pretty vibrant and everything.
Halo 3 was pretty good, yeah. But like Bungie, like Bungie has always made extremely colorful, vibrant games. Like even Destiny, like you can think what you want about Destiny, but like the environments in Destiny are pretty incredible. Like really good skyscapes and stuff.
Seeing how it impacted long-running franchises is interesting to me. I think you and I talked about when we were talking about doing this topic. We talked about The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, which
that's a great point.
Is probably the Zelda game that has aged the worst, in my opinion.
Because it's crazy. Because like we get Wind Waker, which was this, you know, at the time people saw it as maybe a cartoony art style, right? And it had these vibrant colors and this cell shaded esque art style, and then it's succeeded by Twilight Princess that was all like gray and muted and like serious or what have you.
Yeah, and I like Twilight Princess. Like,
don't get me. I love Twilight Princess, but
you
like,
can see the impact of this generation of gaming
visually.
Yeah,
look at what game aged like butter, like butter wouldn't age well.
Yeah.
Aged like milk. That's what I meant to say.
Like milk, yeah.
One aged like fine wine and one aged like milk. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and they both got HD re-releases to really show you how bad it was.
Yeah. Which, by the way,
but
put those on Switch.
I like looking,
what are you doing?
The other, and this, I don't know if you guys have played these games really, so it may not be able to relate to it too much. And I didn't play it at the time, but Devil May Cry 4 was very difficult for me to complete because it came out during this era. It was one of those like very cold blues kind of games.
Yeah.
Where it just, the visuals were so much less interesting than Devil May Cry 3. And which is wild because Devil May Cry 3 was a PS2 game that really didn't care about visuals that much. But yeah, it took me over a year to finish Devil May Cry 4 because I just got fatigued by these by
looking at it.
Yeah. Like, and the gameplay is immaculate. Devil May Cry 4 is one of the best Devil May Cry games. Really probably beaten only by 5.
But I don't know, like some games I think definitely use the color palette appropriately. Like I know like another game that came out during this time, Spec Ops: The Line, on the surface looks like another gray and brown.
It's making fun of those though.
Yeah, on the surface it looks like another gray and brown Call of Duty game, but if you actually play it, you see what it actually is, and it's a commentary on those games, which is very cool.
Those
games were few and far between.
It's both a commentary and it's kind of lampshading because it does comment on those things by just doing them, basically.
Yeah. But I do think it's interesting because, like, when we think about, like, Nintendo during this era, right? Like, they still weren't making HD games, right? But they went in a totally different direction. And usually when Nintendo was always kind of like The Rock, right? Like, you could always go back to Nintendo and see, like, these creative, colorful, amazing games. Nintendo decided to go off and go all in on the Wii, right? For better or worse.
Yeah,
and that resulted in a
brilliant games like Mario Galaxy.
Exactly, yeah. But eventually what this led to was a dearth of content, right? Like there was like almost nothing towards the tail end of the Wii.
Yeah, the pinnacle I think is Wii Music. Like,
oh god, I'll never forget Wii Music.
Yeah, so they're really just like, for somebody that liked vibrant, colorful games, like, unfortunately, if you're a 3D platformer, I guess you had Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2. So saying if you're a 3D platformer fan, this era was rough is maybe not fair. But it felt kind of rough because it really felt like Nintendo had always been in your corner and they were not in your corner anymore.
Right. This was, I mean, like, I guess arguments could be made for N64 and GameCube because they sold less, but like everyone still respects those systems, right? Like this was the first time it seemed like Nintendo had gone away from its core audience.
Yeah, I genuinely remember feeling abandoned by Nintendo, like as a kid, you know, but I felt like there's nothing here for me anymore. I have to go buy a PS3. Like
Yeah, that was I think it really felt like Nintendo's first very serious misstep as like someone who didn't want to just play Wii Sports, right? Don't get me wrong, I love Wii Sports, right? But I was looking for the Marios and the Zeldas and
I have very fond memories looking back on the Wii, but like more so than the Wii U, which is funny because I saw the Wii U was announced and I remember thinking finally they're going, a return to form.
Oh gosh.
I remember it was
much worse. Yeah.
Finally a controller that is mostly buttons, and oh my god, was I wrong. But
yeah, it was a tough time. Yeah. It was I'm glad Nintendo bounced back the way they did, cuz like in an alternate future we would still be using like waggle controls to control like Link's sword or whatever.
I love Mario Galaxy, but I do remember, like, even at the time, I felt like it was a serious casualization after, like, Mario Sunshine. Like, going from those free roaming, the Odyssey style.
Okay, I know, I hear what you mean. I don't think I'd use that word. I still think Mario Galaxy was brilliant, right? Like, in terms of its levels and everything.
Yeah,
it just
I agree.
Wasn't a seamless,
I'm just saying how I felt at the
seamlessly
time.
Connected world or whatever.
Looking back, I agree with you. Like, Mario Galaxy is brilliant, and I love returning to it. But at the time, when I felt like a lot of vitriol towards Nintendo for quote-unquote abandoning me, I felt that it was a casualization and, like, not great, But that's coming. I did 100% Mario Galaxy. I think it was the first Mario game I ever 100%ed. I even played through it the second time as Luigi and everything.
Yeah, and aside from those first-party games like Mario Galaxy and Zelda Twilight Princess, I feel like this might sound weird, but the Wii's art style to me, I remember it as just like Mii's and stuff.
Yeah,
like that's what I think of when I think of the Mii. Yeah,
not in a great way.
Yeah, like GameCube was cartoony in a great way.
Yeah,
Wii was like cartoony in like a like this is what a corporate office would design, how a corporate office would design a cartoon. That
was another problem with the Wii, was that like these third parties didn't really know what to do with it, because they were still like, there were some brown games on the Wii, and like that. I mean, really didn't work.
The Wii even got Call of Duty games.
Yeah, I know, and that really didn't work because the Wii was not really any more powerful than the GameCube.
Yeah, so it was just it was like a GameCube with motion controls, essentially.
Yeah, so those games really suffered. I remember a couple, like I remember some big, like, this is going to be the Wii's first-person shooter. I can't remember the names of any of those games, but
another relevant thought, I guess, is this is maybe the first time Nintendo kind of stepped back from the power arms race, right? Like, because GameCube, right, was competitive with Xbox, and
the GameCube was stronger than
PS2.
The PS2.
Yeah, but with Wii, they stopped reaching for that, right? And that's
also
kind
hit
of
a
been
much lower price point, didn't they?
Yeah,
the Wii was like $200 or something.
No, Wii was 300, I believe.
I'll look it up.
We would have to look that up. But yeah, it marks the first time Nintendo really decided to say we're doing our own thing, at least hardware-wise, at least graphically.
Which we launched at $250.
Okay. Which, yeah, I still remember how hard it was to get one of those things.
Yeah, which is a lot cheaper than the $600 for a PS3. So,
gosh, yeah, that's another thing that characterizes this era, right? Like, who in their right mind would launch a console for $600? That is just...
This is when video games went up to $60 a game too, right? Weren't they 50?
Yes.
Yeah.
With the HD consoles, they went up to 60. And it's just weird, like, especially like Sony's messaging and everything. I think they remember saying you'll have to get 2 jobs to pay for this thing. As if that was,
it was delusional.
As if that was like a positive thing.
What's so funny is that was like following right off the back of like $299, Like, wasn't that the PS2 versus the Dreamcast or something?
So I don't know.
I do not remember the price of the PS2.
There's like a famous press conference where like Sega had gone up and they were talking about their new console coming out and they had the price and everything, and then Sony went up and all they said was $299 and they walked off the stage.
I think that might have been PS2.
Yeah. So
it's wild to me because like, okay, Sony was definitely like feeling themselves or whatever when they announced it, but they didn't even have anything to back it up, right?
No.
Like they didn't have games to back it up, right? At least not then. It took a long time for the PS3 games to really hard-hitting PS3 games.
The PS3 was really like a reboot for some. Like a lot of IPs did not survive like the transition. Like, they lost Jak and Daxter. Ratchet and Clank did not do super good on the PS3. I don't think.
No, it did.
No.
Those games were really good.
It did.
Well,
okay.
the games were good, but like they weren't what they were.
Yeah, but they had to start
era.
a bunch of new IPs. They had to start Uncharted. Little Big Planet got its start. Little Big Planet is very near and dear to my heart. That's like my favorite PS3 game.
It's a dead series.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's dead because they're making Dreams now.
Dreams,
the same thing. It's just a bigger version of Little Big Planet.
3 existed too.
But I don't know what Sony was thinking. Maybe they thought like the Blu-ray player would give them a lot of value, similar to how the DVD player gave the PS2 a lot of value. Maybe they thought they could strike gold again like that, but clearly that wasn't the case.
I think that hubris is very much in PlayStation's DNA, and they were very hot off the PS2 being like the most insane console of all time.
Yeah, I guess, but like, I don't know, like, business-wise, there still has to be some logic in this, and like, just thinking about it that way, like, I feel like they maybe bet on the Blu-ray player being a much bigger deal than it was.
I mean, it did. The Blu-ray player did end up being a very big deal for the PS2.
Let's be clear here, a lot of people bought PlayStation 2s to play DVDs. Like, that was a huge deal back in the day.
I mean, my PS3... it was, for a long time, was only still plugged in as a Blu-ray player. Like,
yeah,
it was, a Blu-ray player is still expensive. Like, that's just the way it is.
One thing with the PS3 that I really liked and I miss is that the PS3 Fat could play PS2 and PS1 games.
Right?
And I thought that was just so
mad. I got a PS3 Slim, not knowing that I wouldn't be able to play those.
I thought that was so cool, right? Because like my PS3 felt like, like the PS2 could play PS1 games, right? Like my PS3 felt like the culmination of all of Sony's efforts up to that point. But obviously, as we know now, like it didn't continue that way.
You could still play PS1 games if you bought them on the PlayStation Store, which was
right. But like, I used to be able to, put my PS1 disc into my console, which is, obviously saying that in 2022.
Yeah.
Is like no one really cares anymore, but like I would still very much care about something like that. I would love to stick like a PS2 disc into my PS5. Like that would be
because we're at a point now where like I remember getting a new TV and trying to hook my N64 up to it and realizing that my TV did not support 240p or whatever, so I could not play my N64 on it anymore. I'm like, that sucked.
Yeah. I remember that too. No, like I remember. I think a couple years ago, like busting out the N64 when some friends came over, and like my TV couldn't support it. Yeah, just because it was too advanced.
And like I have a very sick setup in my house upstairs where I like have a retro gaming room that has a tube TV in it and everything. But like, not everybody's gonna, not everybody has a whole room of their house to dedicate to this stuff, and I wouldn't even recommend it. I don't go in that room that often. Like, my next house probably will not have that. So I'm not gonna throw away the stuff, but it's probably not gonna be set up all the time.
Yeah, so that was Nintendo during this era. We talked about Sony and Microsoft. I do want to bring up one thing that I think is very interesting from this era. The lack of indie games, right? So indie games really weren't as prevalent as they are today in that era. I would argue
had
like
the Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah, I was going to say, I sort of disagree with you because this was the start. Console generation was when indie gaming really got
That's
started.
what I was going to say. This is, I to me at least, towards the end of this generation is where the indies kicked off, right?
Spelunky
but before that...
Spelunky HD came out on the Xbox 360 in 2011. That, to me, is the dawn of console indie gaming. Like,
yeah, that sounds fair to me. I think like 2011, 2012 is when the indies really took off.
Yeah, so that's about halfway through the gen. So yeah.
But yeah, like I do think it's interesting, like, let's say 2007, 2008, when these consoles first come out, there really wasn't a concept of like the traditional console indie game that we think of today, right?
No, you're right. But it did, all these AAA players making absolute buffoons of themselves with these brown games kind of opened the door for indies to, they kind of left the door wide open for indies to come in and scoop up a market. Because this is the first time I remember thinking like indie games are doing stuff, they're making good games when nobody else is.
And it's an interesting like period of time too, because like it's in the period of time where like, okay, we were getting these sorts of games now that are only possible because of this hardware, like these 3D, maybe semi-open world HD games or whatever. But like there's obviously still like a hunger for like games that are still like, pixelated 2D platformers or whatever. Games that people grew up on, and developers, AAA developers, are no longer interested in making those kinds of games. But technology has advanced to the point at this point where an indie developer could easily make that kind of game Whereas,
Plus
maybe
like
20, 30 years ago, it would have taken a AAA developer years to make that kind of game, but now it can be made by an indie developer, which is just...
that argument's kind of weird, though, right? Because, like, indie developers today are the same size AAA developers were 30 years ago, you know? Like, an indie team has, like, you know, maybe
that's true.
10 people on it or something. I think the first Spyro game was made by, like, 10 people. Like...
But I guess I'm just saying, like, it was, you know, AAA wasn't interested in making those kinds of games anymore. And indies had the capability to do it, so they just went for it. And obviously, there's still a hunger for those kind of games.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's weird now because the AAA space has seen that people love this kind of stuff, and they've kind of come back to it a little bit. There was a 2D platform renaissance for a bit that was very nice for me.
I keep saying over and over again, we are currently living in the golden age of gaming, right? Like, right now, like, a AAA indie whatever could make whatever they want, and it could still potentially be successful, right? Like... Obviously, we're still kind of fearful of, like, the games as a service homogenization that could happen, right? But, like, overall, like, we still get an amazing variety of games that are all quality, all, like, you know, in different ways.
I think it is the Brown era is kind of characterized by, like, blunders that opened up a market space for someone else. Like, had Nintendo not really leaned into casual games and, you know, made me feel the way I felt.
Motion controls.
Sony would not have been able to come in with Little Big Planet and, like, kind of really, you know, Little Big Planet was a system seller for me. That made me want a PS3 pretty bad. Yeah. And if there was a, you know, if New Super Mario Bros. Was not the dominant 2D platformer, which New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I played it and all, but that art style's horrendous. It's still hideous, and I don't know why they keep using it. I thought that at the time. Like...
Yeah.
You know, if not for wonders like that, I would have never bought a PS3. I wouldn't have a PS4 now, probably.
I can definitely echo that, right? Like, for me, right, like, I had a PS2. I didn't have an Xbox, but, like, seeing, like, all the fun my friends were having with the 360 and Call of Duty and Halo made me want an Xbox. I was done with PlayStation. I didn't really want that. Yeah. And it only took, you know, like, and I got all my third-party games on Xbox and stuff. And it only took, you know, like, the relative... lack of interesting first-party games, to me at least, on Xbox, to make me look at PlayStation's first-party again and say, hey, like, I remember really liking these games in the past, let me give them another shot. And then I'm glad I did, obviously.
Yeah.
But, you know, who knows what could have happened if Xbox had put out, you know, first-party games that I had been interested in. You know, like, I really just wasn't interested in, like, Gears of War and Forza and stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, if Nintendo had, you know, put a good Metroid... Metroid Prime 3 was really good, but if there'd been a good 2D Metroid or something on the Wii, a couple other things, I'd have probably never bought a PS3, never would have played Uncharted.
Yeah.
If not for Uncharted 4, there's no way I would have bought a PS4. You know? That stuff just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Always fun looking back and seeing the chain of events.
I don't know why this whole conversation just has me thinking about Cake Princess or Fat Princess.
Fat Princess, yeah.
Game on PlayStation.
I
loved that game. I only had the demo, but I played it so much. I had no idea what was going on.
Whatever happened to Fat Princess? You know, like, I think that's a Sony-owned IP.
It's a good idea. I feel like
it might be a little crass in 2022.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to say that game couldn't get made today because that's not true, but. And I think most of the time when people say that, they're out of their minds, unless they're talking about, like, 80s movies. But
so Titan Studios,
it is a little crass, yeah.
So Titan Studios went to go be Fun Bits. I think Fun Bits actually shut down over COVID. Because they were working on something called Squids from Space, and then they discontinued development because COVID caused their
Sony still owns the IP, though, right? So if they wanted to, they could bring it back. I just don't know if they think there's a hunger for it.
I don't know that there's a
because it was definitely like it was definitely like a niche thing, but like it was one of those weird experimental things that Sony did that was really cool.
Like online gaming is kind of new type things.
Yeah,
I feel like
definitely has its niche.
There is a pipeline from Fat Princess to League of Legends. I will not elaborate, but
that I feel like you kind of have to.
I just feel like they're not as dissimilar as you would think at a glance. Like. Yes, Fat Princess was classes instead of characters, but, like, Fat Princess had lanes, it had, like, different roles you would take, it had stuff like that. MOBAs didn't exist yet when Fat Princess was new.
No, it did. They did.
Not yet, no. League of Legends hadn't started yet when Fat Princess came out.
The original Dota existed.
Oh, yeah, that was Warcraft. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the mod existed.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
I think
I forget that there
Earth
is a
also
Dota
existed.
1 most of the time.
Speaking of League of Legends, I just kind of want to comment that, and this is totally unrelated, by the way, but Tencent is the most profitable gaming company in the world right now. I think they just released their financials, and it like wasn't even close. So
yeah, Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 2 just came out. So
do they own? So, but they don't own Epic, right? They have like
own a majority.
The majority of Epic, yeah. But like, I have to imagine most of that money comes from League. Like,
Okay, so Fat Princess and League launched the same year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like a couple months after each other.
I know which one I'd rather play.
Fat Princess.
Princess?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fat Princess doesn't make
I
you mad.
kind of want to play Fat Princess now. I wonder if there's like private servers.
Just boot up your PS3.
Wait, there was a sequel for the PlayStation 4?
Really?
Fat Princess Adventures.
Oh, well, that doesn't sound as good.
Oh, it's an ARPG.
Man, Capcom was full of blunders during this time too. Thinking about DMC Devil May Cry.
I feel like a lot of third parties just take turns in generations making blunders.
Well,
you know?
Capcom
Like,
was doing their whole like westernization push, which is really funny because the thing I like about Capcom is how cartoonishly Japanese they are.
because I remember in that era, I was all about Ubisoft. I loved Assassin's Creed, and at the time, it was such a crazy new idea, right?
I liked Assassin's Creed. I was never real crazy about it. But
I was
Assassin's Creed
pretty-
Brotherhood was very fun for me.
Let me just say, in high school, for one Halloween, I dressed up as Ezio, so I was pretty into
That sounds
Assassin's
right,
Creed
yeah.
back in the
Sounds
day.
so edgy.
Dude, I God, am I gonna say this? I absolutely had some jackets that were very like Desmond-y. Like,
Oh, you had the hoodie.
Desmond, really?
yeah, the future.
Desmond sucked.
Like, well,
That's a
yeah,
hot
but
take.
I wasn't gonna wear like a Renaissance looking outfit to school every day. This was a jacket I wore
Okay,
daily.
yeah.
Like,
Obviously, Connor,
It
you
is-
were not
I-
one of the classic
I do-
people.
I was
do
told
remember
I
it
looked like
being-
a professional StarCraft player.
I do remember it being really weird hearing Nathan Drake's voice come out of Desmond whenever I played Assassin's Creed games,
I
because
didn't
like
know that.
it was the exact same voice, and he like didn't even try to change it.
That's really
like it was very jarring.
Remember PlayStation Home?
Yeah,
Yes.
PlayStation Home was
The original
awesome.
metaverse.
The original
Yeah.
metaverse.
I still think that was such a neat idea, like ahead of its time.
Oh,
It was
so
a
cool.
neat idea, but it didn't work, and we'll probably do an episode on this, but it didn't work for the same reason the metaverse is never going to work. Like, it's not practical.
I mean, I think it could work. It's just no one's done it right yet, I think.
I feel like I could talk about this for an hour if we wanted to do an episode on it about why the metaverse is a nonsense idea that'll never work. But in a literal sense, yes, it could work. It won't though. For a lot
It
of
won't,
reasons. Yeah.
because people.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I remember PlayStation Home being like
I had a lot
neat
of fun.
little free PlayStation game.
yeah, I mean, I won't say like I frequented it, but like I
played
remember
it.
checking it out every now
I would
and then.
get on it every so often.
I played it exactly once and kind of lost interest.
I do know there's like a very dedicated hardcore PlayStation Home fan base out there. Like I think they're actually trying to like revive it somehow.
They're all playing VR chat.
Yeah.
No, I mean like I think there's a dedicated group of people out there. Like I saw this documentary on YouTube, I believe, that are, devoted to resurrecting PlayStation Home because they had such fond memories of it. Like they
That
made
just seems
friends
like an
and stuff through
insane
it.
Thing to do though.
Yeah, I know,
What is
right?
Resurrected. Destination Home.
Destination Home, that's what it was called. Yeah.
I don't know. It seems so pointless.
I don't know, man. Like people obviously valued it in a certain way.
Yeah.
No judgments here.
Well, it seems very pointless in 2022 when like VR chat exists. Like
Yeah.
those fill the same niche, but one of them is like way better or at least more interesting.
But no, and not everyone has a VR headset.
You don't have to have a VR headset to play VR chat. You can play it on a screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Kind of defeats the purpose of VR chat.
Yeah, part of me agrees, but part of me is like, the point is to hang out with people in this space. VR is
In a
just
virtual
a
space,
better way
yeah.
to do it. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways,
off
yeah, I
topic,
think
very.
I don't know. Do you guys have any more to say about the Brown era?
The Brown era, I think we covered it for the
Yeah,
most
I
part.
think we got it.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, right.
We got it.
Do we want to
So,
dive into
yeah.
topic number 2?
Oh boy.
Topic.
Time to
Do
be
we want to?
angry.
Okay. I guess
Speaking
an
of
addendum.
metaverse,
Yeah, I was gonna say I almost want to rag on the metaverse a bit, but we can do that another time.
Yeah, I
that's
think
those two they're together.
Yeah.
There was an idea to just briefly talk about NFTs and how I guess we feel about them and their potential impact on gaming. Connor, do you want to start?
They're extremely bad, and every single idea involving them is a scam.
Yeah. Like, the thing about NFTs is that everyone always comes forward with the idea of you could draw cross-game inventory. Who's going to support that?
Yeah, like, who's one thing people love to say with an NFT is that you can get a gun in one video game and transfer it to another video game.
That's not how video games work.
We live in an era where people barely want to keep games working across consoles.
Can you imagine I think the idea of money that would have to change hands to get a game in Battlefield, a game made by EA, and be able to use it in Call of Duty, a game made by...
The way I think how executives and people at these companies see NFTs is that when they look at games like Team Fortress, right? Is that the one?
TF2.
The hardcore,
you can get the
hardcore shooter. Game. Yeah, so like those players are already willing to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on like rare skins and stuff, right?
Yes.
I feel like those would be the exact same type of people who would be like, I would totally buy an NFT that like proves that I own this skin or whatever. You know?
That system's already in place in Valve games.
Yes,
Counter-Strike already has.
Yeah, like
Counter-Strike, that's what it's called.
Counter-Strike already has an original owner.
Yeah,
I believe StatTrack.
Well, yeah, and these people are all talking about how it would be decentralized and all. Someone still has to make the games.
Yeah, like, someone still has to do these things. It's
never gonna be decentralized. You're just making servers, but worse. Like
someone's always gonna have to make the asset and make sure it works.
Yeah.
Like if you get an item in one MMO and you think you can use it in another MMO, someone's gonna have to port that asset and make sure it works in that engine.
And Ahmed, I almost think you're giving these guys too much credit by saying like that they don't understand this. They know they're scamming you. Like,
oh yeah,
there are a lot of people in the NFT space that don't understand it. Those are the ones getting scammed. Like,
the NFTs exist to get you to buy crypto so people can sell out.
Yeah, like
and cash.
NFTs are just a way of leaving you holding the bag. They're always going to be a scam. Like there's no justified use for an NFT ever.
I do remember like Ubisoft announcing they were like going all in on NFTs and just getting absolutely railed. Yeah. And like I think they haven't softened their stance. Like I know some other like
they said
some
they
other
didn't
big
understand.
companies.
You just don't understand NFTs.
Yeah. And no.
And then they gave their employees an NFT hat as like a reward for a game milestone or like an anniversary.
Just to say,
I think
I've been on a job hunt recently, and just my vitriol, I have seen NFTs and the blockchain mentioned in many job descriptions, and that is me instantly blacklisting your company, like for my job hunt, because I will not have my career sullied by this stuff.
Oh like, yeah, no.
Okay, so let me make myself clear. I'm completely against NFTs, but I wouldn't be against working on the blockchain. Like,
I'm pretty opposed to blockchain because 99% of the problems we're trying to solve with blockchain, the problem didn't exist until they were trying to look for something to do with the blockchain. That's not all of them, but it's a lot of them.
Yeah, the blockchain's largely a solution hunting for problems.
Yeah. Which, for those uninitiated, the blockchain is what an NFT is stored on. For all intents and purposes, what the blockchain is really doesn't matter other than the fact that it burns an absurd amount of electricity and produces nothing.
Yeah. And it costs I think Ethereum, there's a price associated with every transaction. And 90% of the time, you're going to be losing money when you make a transaction.
Yes. NFTs also cost a certain amount to mint.
Yeah. Like, as a financial exchange, anytime you lose a significant chunk of what you're paying, and oftentimes you're paying more in the transaction fee than you're paying for the transaction, no one's going to use it.
Yes.
Like if you go to buy a $5 like bag of jerky for $65 because your card's charging you $60 in transaction fees, where's the problem at?
I do wonder why. Like it's kind of fascinating to me that like these big companies really honed in on NFTs, right? Because like crypto has been around for a while, and I think this is just them trying to incorporate crypto technology into video games, and maybe in ways that they think are natural, but like totally don't make sense.
Oh yeah.
I think the one I think the use case that they're going to try and push is like the skins idea, right? Like get these super rare items that you can prove that you own or whatever. But I feel like at this point, the discourse has almost completely gone in the other way, in that like there was a period of time where there was almost a question of like, are we going to have NFTs push on us? Now I would say definitely not, right? Like I think most like even the non-savvy like customers and stuff of these video games, I feel like everyone kind of knows NFTs are nonsense at this point.
I'm not convinced we're out of the woods yet on NFTs and other crypto being pushed on us, because an idea being extremely unpopular is not enough to stop an idea. Like
there's also the topic of like,
I guess,
play to pay
okay,
or whatever
so
games.
the first the first test is going to be if a company like Ubisoft implements NFTs and how well they sell, right? Like
people's hatred of NFTs is not enough to stop them from buying a game including NFTs. I don't think.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they might not buy the NFTs, but it costs Ubisoft nothing to include the NFTs in the game, really. So, that's just another. And then eventually we get desensitized to it. It's been in there long enough. I think that
that's
it
a
can
fair
weasel
point.
its way in still. I don't think we're out of the woods.
Yeah, I don't think we're free yet, and especially with people like you could.
I am optimistic though, because I think there has been a very vocal response to this, unlike other let's say negative gaming practices. So I
really don't want to see a future where games are play to earn, because that just sounds awful. I don't want to treat a game as a job.
No,
no. I do not want a game to pay me in an NFT that I will probably lose money on for playing it.
No, I agree.
Well, you'll only lose money on the NFT if you buy it. Like if you receive one,
I'll still lose time.
Yeah,
like I'm not.
Time's the most valuable currency. Let's just be real here.
Just a garbage picture that I could trade for a garbage amount of money and probably lose more on transactions.
You don't want to have proof that you own this JPEG?
I don't care about the JPEGs. I don't even need the proof.
I do wonder if NFTs being in games is gonna be enough for them to start bumping up against anti-gambling laws, though, because like loot crates and stuff have been able to avoid that until now, because there's no way to get money back out of it.
Maybe, actually,
but that's gonna stop being true if they're NFTs, because you can sell an NFT fairly easily. So I don't know. I would love. This is one of the rare occasions where I would actually kind of really like for legislation to shut this entire industry down, because I think NFTs are cancer, and really blockchain in any way involved in gaming is almost certainly going to be cancerous.
It's attempting to see the same thing that happens in the art world, where value's artificial largely, and try to put it into the gaming space.
I definitely agree that NFTs are not going to add value to gaming, and I'm a little softer on the blockchain idea. I still think that there's something that could be explored there, but as it is currently, I will say definitely not.
The blockchain's been around a really long time. Like, it's not a new concept. And the fact that, like, it suddenly has become a buzzword is a pretty easy way to tell that it, like, is mostly bad, in my opinion. But, because it was, like, in the 90s, I think.
It has become a buzzword, right? But, like, I also think it's recently that people are trying to find novel ways to use it. And I don't know what that novel way would be for a game. Maybe like a multiplayer thing where like you have to like work together and you progressively unlock, like new levels or layers to the game.
But
right?
But none of that
each
has
level or layer
me.
would be like another node on the blockchain or something.
But there's no reason that can't just be hosted on a server. Like, the advantage of the blockchain is that stuff is decentralized, and yet nothing that is actually, like, nothing on the blockchain that I've seen is actually decentralized. Like, all of this is still dependent on a server, and once it's dependent on a server in any way, the blockchain is not adding value anymore.
Yeah, I guess once we come up with a decentralized video game, then that's your use case.
But that just can't happen.
Such a thing
somebody
doesn't
still has
exist
to be
yet.
making stuff for it. Like,
I guess the idea would be like you make it and then it just sort of goes on its own or whatever. I don't know.
This perfect video game with no bugs.
Yep, exactly.
Are you sure
like,
you don't want to buy
it
buy an
doesn't
NFT
work
to get into my exclusive metaverse.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the metaverse too. I was saying like PlayStation Home and stuff like that. Like
Second Life,
the
VR
value
chat.
add of a metaverse is like this virtual space that maybe like me and my friends can meet in this virtual space, and then like, hey, we're all hanging out in this virtual room that we're hanging out in, whatever. And then we say, hey, let's jump from this virtual room and go play this virtual game or something. And now, like, that transition has to be flawless. The creators of both of these applications have to have communicated clearly what this transition looks like, and it has to be perfect every single time. That's never going to happen because, like, Facebook wants to make their metaverse. VR chat already exists.
VR chat exists, and it's probably the best.
Other companies are going to want to make their metaverse. Like, you're going to have all these different standards. Nobody's ever going to be able to, like, concede, like, all right, you beat us to it. We'll have to use your metaverse.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. So, like,
I mean, just look at Facebook's stock, right? Look at Meta's stock.
Oh my God, yeah, it's tanking.
What happened?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, clearly, people are not on board with this. So, that's why, like, I'm not, I don't know. Like, I guess maybe I'm naively optimistic, but, like, the evidence to me as it points right now, I don't think we have to worry about, like, gaming suddenly taking a little left turn into NFTs and crypto. I don't think it's going to happen.
Much like funny how this all ties back together. I could see us having a dark age where it happens for a while. I think that the industry will correct over time, because they're going to start losing money and it's really stupid. But I could see us having these issues and having to deal with them for a time.
So here's a counterpoint I want to make. So obviously, like, the gaming industry has a habit of chasing trends, right? Like, everyone's chasing games as a service because it makes all this money and, like, all of this stuff, right? Like, and the counterpoint to that is we just had a game come out, a single-player game. Well, it has multiplayer elements, a single-player game with no games as a service elements, no microtransactions, and it's doing Call of Duty numbers. It is still possible in this day and age to make video games for the intent of just making a really good game and it being so good that no one can ignore it. Right?
Yeah, like, and that never went away. Like, even in the darkest ages of gaming, that was still happening. Like,
yeah, and all I'm saying is, like, we have examples like Elden Ring, right? Like, that show that, like, we're never really, no matter how far into, like, a dark age we go, we always know what, I guess, the right path is for game development.
Yeah,
right?
There are still, like,
nothing beats, like,
out there. Like,
nothing beats a solid video game. Like,
yeah,
I don't,
because even like, behind it all, there are, like, people behind it. There are companies making these games, but those companies employ people who see all this stuff for what it is and, like, just want to make a good game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's always going to be Miyazaki's, There may not. I mean, there will never be another Miyazaki.
There'll never be another Miyazaki.
There's always going to be people out there trying to make their very good game that is just a good game. No caveats.
It's just refreshing to see that coming from, like, a AAA studio.
Yeah.
Like, and it's succeeding to the degree it has.
Yeah, From Software or something else.
Yeah, very proud of them. Because, like, this started out like, I mean, we don't have to go into this, but everyone knows what I mean.
Do you have more to say about NFTs, Mike? I think I've kind of...
Not really. I've kind of just...
They just make me mad. Points. Especially, like, GDC is going on right now as we're recording, and I am seeing a lot of tweets from, like, video game developers who are really mad because there are people spending a lot of money to peddle this stuff at GDC.
Oh, yeah. No, GDC did a poll recently, and a lot of the developers, like 70% all just didn't agree with NFTs.
Yeah, because they're bad and dumb.
Yeah, they're bad. Anybody who has common sense in the coding space and doesn't want money knows they're bad.
Yeah. No, like, yeah, they're grifters. It's that simple.
The people that don't are
grifters.
Yeah, they're grifters, or they want a lot of... Like, I recently completely blacklisted a musician from my listening history just because he started selling NFTs.
Yeah, it's actually really upsetting seeing all these celebrities who, like
he went full deep. He actually now changed his Twitter name as well.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah, I see a lot of celebrities like, I just bought this NFT, and they have no idea what they're talking about, and that's just kind of sad.
Right. I was going to say, like, a lot of celebrities, they're being
paid to do it. Yeah.
They see ways to make money and they go for it, right? They don't really have much to lose. right?
Yeah.
I don't think they'll lose their fans over it.
No, probably not.
Or not a significant portion.
Yeah.
But anyways,
people were like, yeah, NFTs. Yeah, we'll buy your sound NFTs. And
do we want to transition?
Yeah, games we've been playing.
Yeah, why don't we start with Mike? We never start with Mike. Let's start with Mike.
Did I talk about Crusader Kings 3 yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I've been playing Crusader Kings 3 again, which would recommend. Honestly, it's Crusader Kings 2, but streamlined and simplified.
I think it's on Game Pass.
Crusader Kings 3 is one of those games that I desperately... Like, I really want to play it. Like, it seems like right up my alley, but I'm very scared if I play it. Like, I'll just turn into like a zombie or a crackhead or something.
It's very easy to step away from because it's not a territory painting game largely. It's more about growing your dynasty.
Yeah, that sounds
slowly
really
growing.
That does.
Like if you just start territory painting, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble with vassals.
Like I've heard like you can just play Crusader Kings 3 for like forever essentially and just not run out of things to do. Is that true?
There's so much to do. Like right now, I'm trying to reunite Africa from the West Coast. I started as a tribe, and I've slowly been growing up from there.
Oh, really? I thought it was like only focused on Europe.
It's North Africa. It's most of Saharan Africa, so like the Mali area of Africa. So Central Africa up to Europe and all the way over to India.
Oh, there's Asia in it too. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, man. This I've thought many times about buying this game, and I will certainly do it one day.
But... Oh, it's really good. Like I think I've talked about Crusader Kings 2 on the show at some point.
I don't think you have.
Maybe I talked about
at least I don't remember.
I don't know. Crusader Kings 2 is a lot more complex and has a lot of DLC, and Crusader Kings 3 is much more streamlined and easier to get into than 2 ever was.
And is that a good thing?
Oh, it's a very good thing.
Okay.
2 was almost arcane in the number of menus you had to go through to do anything.
Yeah.
It was not a great time. But 3, it's largely 1 or 2 menus deep to do anything you need to do.
I have like looked at a few screens of Crusader Kings 3, and obviously like anyone who looks at these games for the first time, it's going to be overwhelming, right? Like I felt the same way when I looked at Civilization for the first time. I was just like, what is all of this? Like, what are all these menus? What are all these stats? Like, it's just so much information coming at you at once. And I got that sense when I was looking at screenshots of Crusader Kings 3. But I'm sure if I play it, it'll make sense. Nested tooltips.
Yes, so if there's a term in a tooltip that you don't know, you can mouse over it and it'll show you a tooltip that defines the term.
That's very good.
That's
extremely good.
Impressively good.
Yeah.
Like and certain terms will be highlighted, like stability, and then you could mouse over stability and it'll describe you what stability is.
That's the kind of thing I really wish was in the game that I'm going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, it's very, very well thought out tutorial system now. Very nice.
And there's like, you mentioned you were starting as Africa, right? Like there's all sorts of different starts to this game. Like you can start as all sorts of different, like what are they called? Like scenarios or whatever?
Not even scenarios.
Like,
you can just pick a nation on a map.
Yeah, and the gameplay will like adapt dynamically based off who you pick, right?
In a way, everything's simulated in the background anyway, so Europe is still going to change regardless of what you're doing in Africa.
Yeah. But it's like different each time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And depending on what you want to do, you'll have a set of goals that you can set yourself. Like, I want to reform the Kingdom of Mali, or the Empire of Mali, so I want to conquer all of Africa.
But so I guess another question. There's no, like, win state, right? You just sort of play it?
Yeah, there's no win state. It's largely just what you want to come up with. Like, what's your end goal?
Yeah. That's fascinating to me, because I feel like I've never played a game like that, right? Like I feel like I always have to have like a win or end state. I don't know if I could handle like defining it myself.
Yeah, it's very easy to define it yourself, and it also makes it easier to stop playing for a session, because you could be like, okay, at the end of this session, I want to establish this kingdom title, and then once you do that, you can just stop playing and come back later.
Yeah, games without an end state are dangerous for me, because then I end up playing
I think
Factorio.
I think I'm in the same camp as Connor. I don't know if I could. I don't know what would happen.
I
kind of want to try it just to see.
I can play them, and I usually like them a lot. It's just unhealthy.
Yeah, I know.
Crusader Kings 3 is also weird because you can start at 850 AD, immediately raid Rome, murder the Pope, and then destabilize the entirety of Catholicism.
And the game just like goes from
it'll
there.
just go with it because it'll drop the fervor of Catholicism down to like 0, so people are converting religions left and right. So you'll just turn Europe into chaos.
Yeah, that's a wild alternate history, yeah.
And it'll be... I'm kind of tempted to start a campaign where I do that just watch Europe unfold.
Is there multiplayer?
Yes.
Oh, God.
There is multiplayer. All Paradox games have multiplayer, and the best part is if you're the host and you own all the DLC, no one else needs the DLC.
Oh, man.
You're saying very dangerous things to me.
Yeah, that's the case for all Paradox games.
You just got me.
What were you going to say, Connor?
Kart DLC.
Oh, no.
Why? What? How did that?
Because only one of you has to own it, so I bought it and I've been playing with all my friends.
Oh yeah,
I still haven't played it yet. I still got to check it out.
That is the best DLC plan, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's just good business. I don't want to talk about. It's still just Mario Kart, so I'm not
especially with like Paradox and the fact that their games get an enormous amount of DLC. So if you don't get in early, you're going to suffer in terms of your wallet.
Well, I also feel like a lot of times with those multiplayer is not the best way to play them because you get stuck waiting a lot.
No. It's real time.
Yeah.
Really?
It's not a 4X.
It's a real time game.
Okay.
So you don't wait. You just kind of
just goes.
Play it at a speed and
Same
go.
like Stellaris, right?
Like CK3.
I have played Stellaris.
Yeah. CK3 multiplayer is kind of fun because me and a friend I was playing as an Adamite in Spain, which meant my entire dynasty was naked.
I thought I had watched one of my friends play Crusader Kings.
I think it was on Extra Life. Because I streamed it on Extra Life at some point.
Yeah, no, what I was watching was turn-based, so I'm not sure what it was.
It probably wasn't Crusader Kings. But yeah, I kept getting assassinated by the Irish.
So there has to be like... I don't know, there has to be some kind of end state, right? Like, at a certain point, new stuff has to stop happening, right?
There's a time end state, I believe.
Okay.
Like, I think it's so... You can also transfer your saves. There's utilities to transfer them between the games. So if you really want to go wild, you could start a save in Crusader Kings 3 and play it in Hoi 4.
In what?
In Hearts of Iron 4, which is a World War II game. You can transfer all the way up through...
And so it reads your save in Crusader Kings 3 and that impacts the game?
There's tools to import it. I think usually the import path is importing it from Crusader Kings 3 or 2 to Europa Universalis 4. And then transferring that to, I think, Victoria 2?
This
and then going to Hoi 4?
This is nuts.
This sounds...
Yeah, you could have
this doesn't sound real.
There are tools that exist.
And then you have to transfer your save into Pokemon Home, and you...
Exactly, right? Hey, I still have Pokemon that I caught in, like...
Oh, there's like...
What, 2005?
Apparently.
Yeah, you can carry your Pokemon from Gen 3 forward, if you want
to. Yeah, I still have a bunch of Gen 3 Pokemon. That I still need to get out of the 3DS bank or whatever.
Mine are stuck on my Pokemon Diamond.
So you'd have to play Victoria 2, which is a bad time. But there is a save converter from
That's
EU4.
insane, man.
You could play a game the same nation as you played in Crusader Kings 3.
That's insane.
All the way in World War II.
I've like never heard of anything like that. That's crazy. You got anything else?
That's about it.
I got 2.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Connor, you seem like you're itching. So
yeah, I wanna. So first, I talked about Capcom briefly earlier. The reason I've been thinking about them is because I picked up Monster Hunter Rise because it was on sale on Steam.
You were ragging on it earlier, right? Is that the one on? That was the one on Switch, right?
Yeah, I was ragging on it because it was like a Switch exclusive, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be worse than Monster Hunter World.
So it's out on PC too?
Yeah, it's out on PC now.
Okay.
I was super wrong, as it turns out. This game, I mean, I knew it was going to be good because, like, the Monster Hunter, very much like Call of Duty, it's the same game every time, and it's never been bad, to my knowledge. There have been, like, worse ones, but they're all pretty good. And, yeah, I love me some Monster Hunter. I wish I had someone to play it with. It doesn't have cross-platform multiplayer. I didn't want to only have it on Switch, because I wanted to play it in 4K, sue me. And, yeah, none of my friends are into it, so it ends up being a pretty lonely experience. I will say that, like, the multiplayer, like, drop-in, drop-out multiplayer in this one, where you can join somebody halfway through a mission, is way better in Rise, I would say, than it was in World, because there are like separate multiplayer missions from the single player missions, which like on paper looks worse, but in practice is just way less annoying because like cutscenes aren't an issue and stuff, and cutscenes were a huge issue in Monster Hunter World. But these games are just so much fun. Like, and this is like, it did learn a lot of lessons from World about streamlining and stuff. It's very good. It kind of took out some of the stuff from World that people didn't like so much. Graphically, it's really good for a Switch game. It runs on RE engine, the same one, you know, the new Resident Evils and Devil May Cry 5 are on, and that engine...
That's a good engine.
Never stops surprising me. But it had me thinking about, like, what Monster Hunter is to me, and it combines so many things from other games that are good. Like, it's got, like... It doesn't have the difficulty of a Dark Souls game, but, like, if you play Dark Souls and then you play Monster Hunter, like... the gameplay is going to be instantly familiar to you. You know, you're fighting these giant monsters, you're dodge rolling through their attacks, and you're swinging your giant sword at them. And I don't know, man. Like, good.
I think Monster Hunter is very close to ensnaring me. Like, I feel like the next entry that comes out, I might just be all over.
If you want to pick it up on your PC, Monster Hunter Rise is $30 right now. I would love to play it with you some. And having a friend will make the grind go down a little smoother for you, probably. And also, and this is the next part I was going to say, the onboarding is still not great. Like, I was crafting some materials, or I was crafting some armor in this game, and I will say the grind seems smaller. Like, I didn't have to kill as many monsters as I expected to craft my gear, which is an improvement in my opinion. But there was one material that I needed to craft a sword I wanted to make, and I was like, I've never seen this material before. Like, where do I get it? And I'm like pouring through these menus, and finally I gave up, and I looked it up in a wiki. And the material that was listed was not actually a material. It was a category of materials. Nowhere in the game does it tell you what category anything is. So I had to look at a wiki to find this out. And I'm just like...
That's crazy.
This could have been in the game. Like, you could have just told me. Like, there was no reason for this. And that was bad. That was why I was saying, like, God, I would love to have some tooltips in Monster Hunter. It wasn't that bad, because I was just like, you know, I just had my phone, and I, like, said, you know, hey, where do I get this? And... immediately was able to find out and go get it. And getting it was super fun. Like, these boss fights, which is the whole game, is boss fights. And all of them are so good that they are fun to play over and over. And they're also, like, balanced around 4 people bashing on them. And playing this game multiplayer is so chaotic and fun. Because, like, you don't have to be that good. You have to be pretty bad at the game, I think, to really drag down your team, at least in the early game. But then in the late game, like, every one of these hunts has a 50-minute timer on it. And late game, you will push against that 50-minute timer. Like, some of these hunts are an absolute endurance match. Sometimes you have to fight more than one monster. Sometimes one monster is just so tanky that, like, it is a 50-minute boss fight. And, like, that might sound bad, but I liked it. Like, in Monster Hunter 4 when I was actually playing that. I'm not there in Rise yet. I'm still pretty early in the game. It's just really fun. I recommend it very highly.
Dude, I hear this all the time from my friends who play Monster Hunter. I just don't... It hasn't grabbed me yet. And I feel like it's close to... You came over to my house and played Monster Hunter World, remember? Like the demo or whatever? And it just didn't grab me.
The demos are not fun. The demos are terrible. They don't capture the game, like, in any meaningful way.
Okay.
The game is about the grind. It's about fighting a bunch of different monsters. It's about, like... I like the way this monster looks. I'm going to cut off its skin and make an armor out of it. It's like...
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, getting your awesome new sword and then, like... Or where I'm at right now is, like, I got to a monster. I cannot beat it. It is just not feasible for me to beat it. So I got to go and, like, look at all the advantages I can give myself. There are traps I can craft. There are foods that I can mix to boost my stats properly. I can make a weapon that gives me an elemental advantage over it. I can make an armor that resists the attacks it could do. And, you know, if you're using a bow, there are certain types of ammo you can acquire, and you get kitted out, and you come in with a plan, and then you dominate this monster. Like, that is Monster Hunter. Like, each individual hunt is fun, but what's fun about Monster Hunter is all of them put together. Like, it's greater than the sum of its parts, I would say. And there are so many systems working together in these games that you can exploit to get stronger.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I'll give Monster Hunter World another shot. Because, like you said, I only played the demo. Yeah, I have it through the PlayStation Plus collection. So if you have a PS5, you just get it for free.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I really do think if you give it a shot, you'll get into it. But it starts slow. Like, the thing Monster Hunter does that actually really makes me mad, that I think is extremely stupid, you do not fight a giant monster for your first, like, 3 hunts. They have you fight the small ones. Nobody wants to fight the small ones. Like, I don't know why those hunts are even in the game, because they're not enjoyable at all. They're, like, teaching you the controls, I guess. But no, you're not having a good time until you're fighting the giant stuff. But Rise is very fun, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know you were negative on it before you played it, but, like, I had always heard that Rise is, like, the best one.
It is extremely good. Yeah, I was just wrong. Like, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I expected it to look like a Switch game, and somehow it's not quite as good as World, I would say, in some ways. But like the foliage density is less and stuff, and like maybe the textures aren't quite as good. But it looks like a PC game. It doesn't look like a Switch port to me.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it looks very good, and I am having a great deal of fun with it. The only thing, I just wish Monster Hunter would have crossplay, because like if I could play World with you, I guarantee you would have way more fun with World. Like, because these games are...
Yeah, man, I'm sure we're headed towards the crossplay future. We're just not quite there yet.
They're very multiplayer focused. It makes me mad because I think the new DLC for Rise is even coming out at the same time on PC and Switch. So like, give me my crossplay. Like, that was the excuse on Monster Hunter World, was that the two didn't have feature parity. The console was like way ahead of PC.
Yeah.
So they didn't do crossplay. I even think there might have been Xbox and PS4 crossplay. I forget. But I don't know why they're not doing it on Rise. But yeah, World is also really good. I had a lot of fun with World. 4 is still the one I've played the most. I think that's all I've got to say. Capcom is just on fire. They really haven't made a bad game in a long time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. They've been on a hot streak. For sure.
The last 2 Resident Evils, Devil May Cry 5 is like, it's goated for sure. Like, Monster Hunter is incredible every time. I don't think of Capcom as being this good, but like, when I actually think about the individual games, like, these are insanely good games.
Who's gonna buy them?
Huh?
I said, who's gonna buy them?
I am. I will buy them. I feel bad that I didn't buy Rise at launch, honestly, because like, I'm having a lot of fun with it, and there's still a community. Like,
just goes to show, first give things a shot before you form an impression.
Yeah,
I guess.
Like, Monster Hunter needs a big community for the multiplayer to work too, because like, every hunt is its own matchmaking, and there's like a bunch of different hunts in the game. But like, I have not, every hunt I pick, it's less than a minute of matchmaking, and I'm thrown in, and I get to fight the monster with 3 randos and have a good time.
Yeah. You got anything else to say?
Nah, I just like it. I got another game I want to talk about after you, I think.
Okay. Yeah, let's switch it up here. So, I've been playing Elden Ring pretty much exclusively. And after 120 hours plus, I've finally completed the game. I've conquered all the bosses. I've slain Melania, Blade of Mikola, which, by the way, is probably the hardest From Software boss ever made.
If you're not using the Mimic tier.
Yeah. I would say it's close in my mind between Melania and Ishin the Sword Saint from Sekiro. But
oh my god, you think she's harder than anything in Sekiro?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
With Ishin though, like, I remember, like, it took me, I think, 2 days to beat Ishin. But after I beat him, I was able to beat him pretty regularly. I don't know if I could beat Melania again.
Yeah, I watched
at
your
least
playthrough, and you got lucky a few times in there. But it was a pretty impressive fight. It was better than I could do, for sure. You do a lot of damage, by the way. I think you're doing a lot more damage than I am.
Yeah, it's the bleed.
Yeah.
I've got.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, right? Like, I definitely got lucky a couple times, but that fight is no joke, right?
No, yeah.
You could get lucky in Radahn. You cannot just be lucky in Melania. You have to kill her. You have to, you can't just.
No, that second
squeeze
phase,
by.
You basically can't make any mistakes.
Yeah, that's the best way of putting it. Those were the words It reminds me of Ishin in the sense that you have to be on the whole time, and if your concentration wavers for a second, you're dead. Right? Like,
yeah.
I guess this is just me talking about this boss fight now, but like, it took me. I was actually surprised at how quickly I got her. Like, it took 3.5 hours, which I was fully prepared to just sit there for like a couple days and do nothing.
Than that, I think.
Yeah,
and I mean, granted, I have many reasons, but performance reasons are why I haven't beat the final boss yet. I am not good enough to beat Melania yet. I don't have it. Like,
yeah, you just have to learn. I almost, like Mike's criticism of these games. Melania is a job. And there's no other way other than to just learn her patterns and just get good enough to react to them and get lucky enough in a couple instances to not get one-shotted. Yeah. You can dodge her crazy blade attack though. Like it's almost impossible to completely dodge in my opinion, even though I did do that a few times, but like I did get pretty regularly I did get good at regularly dodging most of it to where I only had to take one flask to recover the HP. But like at first, that attack, whenever it happened, I just died. Like it was just like
insane difficulty spike though, because like getting to her is not very hard.
Dude, I would argue that area is probably the hardest area in the game.
Really?
The Hallig Tree, yeah.
I didn't think it was that bad, but
I mean, compared to the rest of the game, I think it's clearly the hardest area of the game.
It is. Like, she is nuts though,
and it just makes me laugh so much. Just looking back, because there were so many concerns about this game. Oh, it's a watered-down experience for casuals. Like, this boss fight is one of the hardest bosses I've ever fought in my life.
I saw a tweet right before we recorded today where somebody was saying Elden Ring is the easiest FromSoft game. And I 100% agree with that. But then, like, the response to that tweet was like, oh, yeah, if you use sorcery and if you use your mimic tier.
I mean, that applies to all of them.
And I was like,
right.
Yeah. And then, but if you play it how it's supposed to be played.
No, that's really stupid.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Like, there is no how it's supposed to be played.
Your comments, like, those comments are turning people off of these games. You're actively hurting the sales of this game if you're out there spouting nonsense like that. So stop it.
I summon my Ash sometimes. Sue me. Like, it makes the game fun for me. Like,
yeah.
I didn't want to fight the Godskin duo.
Fun's not allowed.
I didn't want to fight the Godskin duo or whatever they're called, like, one at a time by splitting them up. That wasn't fun. So, like, yeah, I used a summon. Like, who cares?
I got Godskin duo on my first try, by the way. I was pretty happy about that.
That was very hard for me. It took me forever, but I was a little...
Godskin duo, first try, no spirit ashes.
Wow.
Come at me.
Can't relate. But I also hadn't run into those enemies. Those enemies exist other places in the world, and I
ran into both of them individually.
I had not
separately
them at all.
Yeah,
so it was 2 brand new enemies for me.
But yeah, I guess I know a lot of the people. Not a lot of them. Some of the people listening to this are still going to be knee deep in Elden Ring. So if you're very sensitive to spoilers, feel free to skip this section. But I think I saw some criticisms, before I finished the game of like, oh, the late game areas aren't that good. And I guess I would somewhat agree that they're not as good as like the first half, but they're still freaking good.
Yeah, I think it's me you're referencing here. I said that.
I saw that in a few other places.
They get a lot less open, and I think that is true. Like they do get narrower.
The Hallig tree was insane. Yeah, I thought that level was incredible.
Yeah, no, I think they're incredible. They're just not open worlds anymore. They turn into like a Souls dungeon. Like Farum Azula is not real open. It's a Souls area.
Yeah.
Like
Farum Azula was cool, but I was just really impressed by the Hallig tree.
The Hallig tree is cool. A lot of stuff there is cool. I like the way you get there. I like how hard it is to find all the stuff you need to get there, and
yeah, like getting there was ridiculous, man. Like, oh, okay, I have to like solve this puzzle while invisible assassins come at me and mages shoot homing arrows at me. Like, are you serious?
I was talking about even getting the medallion. The medallion was like,
yeah, even that, like even getting to the area before you could even potentially get there is so cryptic that I feel like most people won't get there.
Yeah, get
to that area even.
Yeah.
It's this, like, I love that stuff about From games, man. Like, there's so many layers that if you're curious enough, you can discover this stuff, and it can just go on and on and on. And it's like all this stuff is totally optional, by the way.
Elden Ring, because like in Dark Souls, I feel like the medallion would have been like a random place you had to use a gesture or something that like there were no, not a lot of hints or anything. Whereas like no, like I played the game, I explored, I didn't look up any guides to find any of this. Like, I just found it by looking.
Yeah. Yeah, same.
Now, granted, there are apparently doors that you have to attack with your sword 50 times.
I could not believe that. I think that's got to be Miyazaki just trolling.
I think it's a bug. I think that
there's no way. No way, man.
No,
it has to be intentional.
No, because it didn't always take 50. It depended on the weapon they used. The theory is that walls have a poise stat. And I think that the poise stat got messed up on that wall. Like, it was supposed to be 1 and it was like 100 or something on accident. That makes way more sense to me than Miyazaki thinking, yes, this door has...
I don't know, man. I could see it. I really could see it happening. Like, but you know, that kind of thing happening in a game like this, intentional or not, is just going to make the community explode, right? Because like people are just going to go around and hit every door like 100 times.
I already
times
saw
now.
People getting organized with a spreadsheet to like attack every wall.
Like every wall.
100
Jesus
times.
Christ! That I love that stuff, man. That's so insane.
Yeah.
But
no, thank you. That is too much for me.
I'm
glad
not
they're enjoying it, but
I haven't even gone to that wall. I don't even know what's behind there.
Nothing.
Is it anything?
It goes to a room you've already been to. That's the worst part. It doesn't even lead to
okay, then it might be a bug. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
If there was like an item in there, then maybe. Yeah,
no, I'm pretty sure it's in the Volcano Manor, and it leads back into the room that has like the guy and the lady that like sell you some stuff related.
Okay, that's super lame. Yeah, then that might be a bug.
Yeah, no, there's nothing there.
But yeah, like it's crazy to me. Just like even after I beat the game, I decided not to do New Game Plus right away and just go around and collect things I needed for the Platinum Trophy. And at this point, I was like comfortable looking up a guide. It was like, okay, I need these weapons, I need these spells. And in doing that, I collected all of that stuff, by the way. Did you get that, Platinum? I did. Yeah, so yeah, I platinumed Elden Ring, which is kind of insane. But in doing that, I discovered entire freaking areas and villages that I hadn't even seen yet. Wow. Like, I was just like, how deep does the rabbit hole go with this game? Like, it's
probably no deeper. Once you platinumed it, I bet you've seen everything. But
well, it's maybe, but like, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, like everything major, right? Like for sure. But there's surely caves out there and catacombs that I haven't seen yet and stuff. But it's just, it was wild to me because as I was going around, it was like, oh, you discovered this whatever village, and I was just like, what?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, and most of it's extremely good. There is some stuff in Elden Ring that I do find myself like, why is this here? Like, there's a, you even have to buy a hint to get to it. There's a hint that says like, oh, if you get Fort Gale.
Yeah, I buy all the hints. Yeah.
There was a hint, and it was like, oh, if you go to Fort Gale, there's a portal that takes you to Castle Radon or whatever. And I think those are the actual names, which I probably shouldn't have used. But like, you could also just walk to Castle Radon.
Redmane Castle.
What was the point? Why did I care about the portal to get there? And there were like a couple of warps in the game that like you go to the warp and
I'll tell you why you care about the portal, right? Because if you charge Redmane Castle from the front, you'll have to face an assault. Whereas like the portal puts you behind the front.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I found the assault very manageable. It really didn't bother me.
Yeah. But you know, like it's there, you know,
yeah.
like
okay, that makes
you can
sense.
sneak in.
Yeah. I will posit, if you cannot get through that assault, you do not have any business at Redmane
Go
Castle.
Turn around, yeah. Like you'll not be a fan of what follows.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's such a good game.
Man, this game is so special. Like, I know, like I'm coming fresh off of it, so obviously my experience is very, painted by that. But this is my favorite game like I've ever played at this point. You know, like
it's probably
I'm
top
sure
10
that
for me easily.
that opinion will become more objective over time. But I'm just
I think
on cloud
like
nine right now.
1. I'll say that, and like
I
Dark
think
Souls
so,
1 was on this unreachable pedestal for me.
I will say it's really funny. As soon as I beat the game, I had an overwhelming urge to play Dark Souls 1.
Really,
I was just
have
like,
an urge to go back and finally play Bloodborne right now.
Oh, you would love. People are still saying Bloodborne is the GOAT, even after Elden Ring.
Really?
Like some people, right? Like I'm not saying the vast majority.
I've played enough of Bloodborne that I know that I don't like it as much as Dark Souls 1. I feel like
I would put Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne at the same level, personally. Those games are
because I'd played like 4 6 hours of it, something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So like I know where it sits for me, I think.
I just love the more aggressive style, and I love the lore and the atmosphere in Bloodborne a lot.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the level design.
Which, by the way, speaking of lore, I don't know if I agree with that, by the way. The level design, well, it's not as good as Dark Souls 1, but it comes pretty
Having
close.
Having fast travel early game hurt Bloodborne, in my opinion, which is weird because I don't feel that way about Elden Ring. Elden Ring is just so vast, you kind of need it, right? But like, I do want to talk about the lore for Elden Ring. I'm fascinated by, but I just don't understand it myself. Like, I really want videos and stuff to come out. I felt like it was very accessible compared to Dark Souls. Like,
I think it is accessible, but I don't get. I don't have the full picture yet. I think there's clearly a cosmic element to it, just like Bloodborne, which I find the most fascinating of all. I want to know how all the cosmic stuff plays into it.
I can say, like, I read some item descriptions, like, Melania went to,
Melania.
Melania, no wait. Is Melania the Blade of Mikola?
Yes.
Oh, but it was Melania. Melania is the Scarlet God or whatever, right?
Goddess, yeah.
Yeah. She went to space and did a bunch of stuff up there. Like, it talks about it, and she brought, like, I'm pretty sure she brought the Scarlet Rot down from space, and like
that's so cool.
Estelle came with her and destroyed Nocrum.
Yeah,
the Eternal City. She brought a lot of that stuff back with her. Like you can get that from item descriptions and stuff. She definitely went to space, and like Rani or whatever, she is going to space for whatever reason. You know, there's for sure a cosmic element and aliens and Yeah,
it's so cool. Especially, like, again, spoilers, right, for Elden Ring. The last boss, right, like,
it's very cosmically themed.
Yeah, it like, there's no other interpretation. Like, it clearly is, like, a space boss thing. Which is very jarring if someone hasn't really been paying attention to the lore and is just playing this as a fantasy game, seeing that last boss is surely gonna raise some questions.
Do you think that because in my opinion it kind of follows the Souls tradition of having kind of a weak final boss, and I thought
so. I saw this opinion a lot, but I thought it was a really good last boss. I like how it was like a two-phase thing.
I think
right?
Radagon's attacks are very manageable. Like, they're not that bad to dodge, and then the Beast just didn't feel like it had that much health. Like, I felt like I could probably beat it if I didn't have lag spikes that make me get one shot.
So I don't know, like, the Beast's attacks, none of them one shot me. So I feel like maybe you need to just put some points into Vigor or something.
Well, it's not literally one shot. It's like I get hit and then I get some lag and then I'm done before I can do anything about it. Like,
but yeah, like, as far as last bosses go, it was good, right? It wasn't the best, right? Like, the best would probably be obviously Sekiro is the best. But, like, you know, like, some people would argue Sekiro is not even a Soulsborne game, which is true, right? It's not a Soulsborne game, but it is a From game.
It doesn't fit the category, but
yeah. But I don't know. I would probably say Bloodborne's
last pushover. Gwyn is a very easy boss.
I would say Bloodborne's last boss is better than Elden Ring's last boss.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even. Oh yeah, the Lord of. I don't remember the Dark Souls. The Dark Souls 2 final boss actually sucks. It's really not very interesting.
Queen, whatever.
Yeah, and it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, with Elden Ring, like, the last boss didn't offend me like it offended some people. I didn't really get the complaints, but
I didn't. I guess offended by it. I just thought it was kind of easy. Like, comparatively, like, I thought that it felt easier than the guy before it.
So here's the thing, right? Like,
Godric.
I think From games, like, for the most part, with the exception of Sekiro, the last boss is never the hardest boss, or like even that hard, really. Like, the last bosses are almost always pushovers.
Like,
yeah.
Except I thought that the final boss in Dark Souls 3 was tough. The Lord of Cinder or whatever.
I haven't beaten Dark Souls 3.
Wow.
Like, I got like to the last. I got to the last level, and then I just stopped playing for some reason.
The last boss of the story I thought was very hard. The last boss of the DLC was insane. It was very hard for me. I saw
one From Software's tradition that definitely exists is that the DLC is often the hardest part of the game.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait for Elden Ring DLC.
Yeah, Elden Ring DLC is going to be nuts. Like, we'll see if they can top Melania. But, just going back to that, man, like, that boss fight, I was, you know what? I finished that boss fight around, like, 2:30 a.m. Yeah. Couldn't sleep till,
you texted me.
4. Couldn't sleep till, 4 just because the adrenaline was so high. Like straight up. Because like every time I got her to phase 2, like if you had like a heartbeat monitor on me, it would like, my heartbeat would like double.
Yeah.
My heart was pounding out of my chest every time I got her to phase 2. Like it was just that intense.
Yeah.
And it was so late at night, and I was like, I was out of town visiting my family too, so like I couldn't like scream or anything when I beat it.
Did you play this on remote play?
No, I brought my PS5 with me.
I was gonna say, God, beat Milan.
No, there's no way. There's no way. Yeah, no. But yeah, like I beat her, and I just couldn't sleep for the next hour and a half because that adrenaline was still in me. Like that.
I feel that happens to me a lot with games. I have to stop playing them for a while before I go to sleep.
Yeah, but like that was definitely a highlight of that game to me. Like this game really does have it all, right? Like if you just want to like if you want an open world From Software experience, you have that. If you want like the hardcore, like tear your hair out bosses, you have that too, and everything in between. Like it really feels like From Software with this game. They simultaneously opened it up to more people and satisfy their fans at the same time, which is a very tough thing to do, I think.
I have really enjoyed watching people. I've seen streamers like use the mimic tier to beat a boss, and they'll just like sit back and eat a bowl of cereal while the mimic tier beats the boss for them.
It's funny because like they nerfed the mimic tier too, and it's still strong, right? Like
the mimic tier is not an easy mode because you do have to beat Radon to get the mimic tier, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Radon nerf. Like, I hope this doesn't become a trend.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because, like, I don't know. Like, I think some of the bosses should be, like, stupid hard, right?
Yeah,
but none of the required bosses in this game are stupid hard, right? Like, some of them are very difficult.
Will get a nerf just because you don't have to kill her.
Like, again, spoilers. Malekith is a required boss, and I thought he was pretty tough.
Malekith was very hard, yeah.
But, like, all the optional bosses that are, like Radon is optional. You don't have to beat Radon.
Radon's
Melania,
optional?
Yes.
I didn't know
you don't have to beat Radon. Melania is optional. And another boss that I would argue is top 5 difficulty in this game, Moog, Lord of Blood, optional.
I did not find Moog that hard.
I found him pretty hard.
Oh, you didn't use an Ash of War though. I did use I used my little skeleton guy.
Yeah, his patterns are crazy, man. Like the delays in his attacks.
I didn't find anything super hard to dodge. I just found the punishes. I swing really slow, so I found it very hard to get in to punish him.
Yeah. No, I definitely thought that fight was challenging, but overall very pleased with the bosses in this game. Very pleased with just again, bravo to From Software. Like, I can't wait to see where they go next. Like, obviously, there's going to be an Elden Ring 2 at this point. There has to be, with how it's sold. Even if that wasn't planned at first, with the way it's selling, with the way it just took over the world. Like,
well, weren't they saying they want to, like, do books and stuff, right? They want it to be a multimedia franchise, I think.
I think that's the plan, right? Like, Elden Ring is just going to become, like, this super big popular IP, right? Like, a new IP that's going to be with us for years to come. And I'm here for this ride, man. I can't wait to see where it goes next. Maybe into space or something.
Yeah, literally. To the moon.
Yeah, Elden Ring to the moon. All right, Connor, what's your other game?
I played a couple indie games and stuff. You know, I returned to Baba Is You. That's a fun game. I played
That's a great
Celeste.
game.
That's super fun. But the one I really want to talk about is Tunic. It's brand new.
Yes.
It's on Game Pass, and I really don't want this game to get missed because people are still playing Elden Ring, because it is so good. It's got like it's really like Zelda meets Fez meets Dark Souls. And I know people are sick of saying that stuff meets Dark Souls, but
it's the Dark Souls of Fez.
This gets it. Like, it has the ladders you kick down. It has the maps that like unexpectedly loop back on each other. It has a bonfire system. Like, it takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls, clearly. And all that works, but it's not what's interesting about the game to me. What's interesting about the game is, like, it takes this classic Zelda style and, like, mixes it with some of the, like, more cryptic puzzles and stuff from Fez. Like, just for instance, like, you're walking around this, like, it's like a top-down isometric-y Zelda-type game. And one of the main items you're finding is pages of the manual. The manual is not in English. It's like an old NES-style manual, which very few of the words are in English. They're mostly in this cryptic alphabet that, like, I think some people have deciphered, and it does actually say stuff, but you can't read it by default. You have to like, and there's nothing in the game to help you read it. You would have to learn that language yourself. And it's beautiful. Like the artwork, the game itself is beautiful. You're like a little fox that is wearing a tunic. You look like Link, basically. Like it's clearly a fox and Link cosplay. It's wearing its inspiration on its sleeve, but like the art involved in this manual is so good, classic NES stuff. It's so adorable. And like, there are secrets in this manual. Like you have to like, because it's not in English. So you have to like decipher it. But once you understand what it's saying, you can go to these places in the game and like there will be whole mechanics that you didn't realize were there. And you literally have the manual, but you can't read it. You have to figure out what it's trying to tell you. And the manual is your only map. The manual has like classic, like in classic games, it has maps of the different areas, and you have to find that page, and then you have a map of that area for the game. And it does like, it shows your character on the map in the manual, so it's not like cruel in that way. Like it does give you some modern features and stuff, but it's just such a charming way to present everything. And it's also like kind of this beautiful post-apocalyptic world. The story is extremely cryptic because you can't, there's very little English in this game. Like so much so that I checked to make sure I had the language set right in the settings, because I didn't realize, I didn't really know what I was signing up for when I started it. So
yeah, I'm 100% going to play this game at some point.
Yeah,
it's definitely on my radar.
It's
so you don't have to
honestly
worry
a really
about that.
good palate cleanser after Elden Ring. Like, because it's got enough of that sauce. Like it's a fairly open world. It's Soulsy combat, but it kind of eases you back into other video games.
I know, man. Like, I'm definitely feeling that post Elden Ring blues. Like, yeah. I tried to play a bunch of stuff and I just was not feeling it.
Tunic, I think, would be a good game for you then. I highly recommend it. I don't know if it's on PlayStation though.
It's not. It's only on PC, Xbox right now.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass though. So if you have Game Pass, I really can't recommend it highly enough. I don't think I have a whole lot more to say. I haven't gotten far enough in it. I just really wanted to give it a shout.
Yeah. No, everything I've seen about it looks spectacular. I'm looking forward to it.
I do feel like there's part of me that's like building it up maybe bigger than it really is, because Fez had all these like hidden meta secrets and stuff that were like really
I don't know, man. I've heard similar things from other people about this game.
Tunic does have that stuff, because I would love for it to.
But the secrets?
Huh?
The secrets?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I've heard this game has, like, Dark Souls level secrets.
Okay. So I haven't seen any of that yet. I just got the vibe. So I didn't want to, like, get disappointed, you know? Because I had this expectation.
Wait, is Tunic giving you Fez vibes?
Tunic is giving me Fez vibes, yeah. And not in the Phil Fish is the worst kind of way.
Not the Phil Fish
in the
way.
good parts of Fez, yeah.
The good parts of Fez.
Yeah, because, I mean, the first thing, like, I saw this language I couldn't speak. And that's, like, an iconic part of Fez, is having to translate that language. Because Fez also had like a lot of secrets that were not in English, or they were in English, but the characters were of another language, and you had to figure all that out. There was like you needed a cryptography degree to finish Fez, basically.
Yeah, Fez was a fun game.
Yeah, I never finished it, but I had a friend that got really into it, and I loved hearing her talk about it. And Tunic is presented in a way that I think I could get really into it, in the way some people got into Fez. I think Tunic is more interesting in gameplay.
It certainly is eye-catching to look at, too.
No, it's gorgeous. So. It's something, you have to play it on, like, well, I don't care how you play it however you can, but I have to play it on my big TV, you know, HDR and 4K and everything. Gorgeous game. That's all I got, though.
All right, yeah. I don't know how this episode went as long as it did, but it did, so.
We had a lot of games we've been playing to talk about. Yeah. Or a lot to say about them.
All right, yeah, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at @podcastgametalk on Twitter. Please like, rate, and review us on any podcast service you use, including SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. And I do want to. Oh man, I lost my train of thought again. I'll have to cut that out.
That's happened to me a lot today too.
Yeah, don't know why. What's happening?
The spell worked.
You want to put a clap?
The spell worked. It out. You don't have to clap. I listen to these whole things over again. Oh yeah, every single time I edit, I listen to the whole thing just to make sure I get everything.
I don't even listen to Drunk Movie Night all the way through.
Well, I guess that's the difference between use my elite podcasts like this.
I use my robot to cut out the silences, and then it's all over.